Hi 8th graders, Mrs. Isham here. So this first video is going to be an introduction to all of the events that lead up to the Civil War, including the Missouri Compromise, which is kind of like the first event of chapter 16. So first of all, I wanted to let you know that we're going to be making flashcards. But if you don't have flashcards like I do, that I stole from my classroom and brought home with me on March 13th, you can always do this on notebook paper. You also don't have to make the flashcards because you can choose a different activity for this week. But if you make these along with me, you're done with your homework for the week as long as you put a picture of them on the slideshow we created for you. So I'm going to have my cameraman come around here and show you this reminder of how differently life was developing in the North versus the South. So in the North, we had all kinds of industry and manufacturing and trading with other nations. That was the way that they made money in the North. And they were very dependent on the cotton that was from the South. So in the South, it was all about agriculture and about tobacco, sugarcane, rice, and corn and cotton. So the two halves of the country were developing very, very differently. And remember, that is called sectionalism. People from the North felt like Northerners, not like citizens of the U.S. People from the South felt like Southerners, not like people from the US. And so they were constantly debating over things that affected one half of the country or the other. And the big debate was this: in the Senate, every state gets equal representation. Every state gets 2 senators. So people from the North didn't want the South to have more senators from them than them, and people from the South didn't want the North to have more senators than them, because they knew that in the Senate, in order for a law to be passed, they would have to get them to compromise, and both sides wanted different things. All right, so we're going to talk now about the Missouri Compromise. So I'm going to number these cards just so we can keep them in order and keep track of them. The Missouri Compromise is started in 1819, and there was a problem. Missouri wanted to join the Union. As the nation grew, as the Louisiana Purchase territories became full of more and more population, they became big enough to become states. And so as the nation grew, more and more states wanted to join the Union. And the question always was, what are they going to be? Are they going to be a free state or a slave state? Now, in 1819, there were 11 free states in the North. There were 11 free states in the South. Not free states, I'm sorry, slave states in the South. So as you can see, there's a balance, like a teeter-totter. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever been the little kid on a teeter-totter. I have. It is not fun, because the other side can squat down and leave you hanging and dangling up in the air, and there's nothing you can do about it. Or they can suddenly let go with their legs and let you slam down into the ground. That hurts too. But both sides were like, we're not going to let the other side get more power. So this is a problem when Missouri wants to join the Union, because Missouri wants to be a slave state. I'm just going to draw an arrow over here. They want to be a slave state. And in the Senate, this is a big problem because, you know, the Northerners know, oh no, they're going to have one more slave state than us, which means they're going to have 2 more representatives in the Senate, which means all the laws that get passed will favor the South and slavery. So this debate went on for a while, and at the same time this was happening, another state, Maine, I'm going to write Maine down here with a question mark. Maine decided they wanted to become a state also. They had a large enough population. So Henry Clay, you might remember his name from past things we've talked about, Henry Clay came up with something called the Missouri Compromise. So there's the front of my card, and the front of my card has a lot of clues as to what this compromise says. Now, flipping it over, this was Henry Clay's plan, and the nation went along with it. So the plan was, we're going to draw a line on the map along the bottom of Missouri. Now, we're going to draw a line along the bottom of Missouri, and it's going to go through the Louisiana Purchase. Now, you're going to notice when I do flashcards, I do not spell things right, and I do not always write out the whole word because it's a flashcard. We want it to take up less space. So they're going to draw a line along the bottom of Missouri through the Louisiana Purchase. And in that Louisiana Purchase area, if you are north of the line when you want to become a state, you will be a free state. And if you are south of the line, you will become a slave state, with the exception being Missouri. Because the other part of this, I'm going to change colors just so you can see the other part. The other part of this compromise was that Missouri would be slave and Maine would be free. Now, why is this so important? Because this compromise that happens around 1819, it keeps the balance on that teeter-totter for 30 more years. The Civil War might have happened sooner if this compromise hadn't happened. So it keeps the balance for 30 years, because now every time there's a state joining the Union that wants to be free, they always try to figure out how to have another one that's going to be slave at the same time in order to keep that balance in the Senate. And again, who was this guy who came up with this compromise that kept the peace? Henry Clay. We'll just stick him on there. My class got to see a lovely picture of Henry Clay and his amazing sideburns. If you don't know what he looks like, be sure to Google him.